Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Karen Smith. I'm the Chair of the Park and Rec Commission here in Great Barrington. Tonight's meeting is a public input session for the parks of Dewey and Grove Street, which are going to be handled by my committee members, Ms. Debbie Reddy and Julie Andujar, and Ty and Bond, Gordon Leedy is also going to be presenting. At that point, we're going to give you some history, some status. There is a form that we're going to ask people to fill out about what they think, what they need, what they want. There's places for additional comments. Understand that this is not decision, this is input. We have budgets to deal with and other things we need to deal with, which we'll go through. So I'd like to introduce Julie Andujar and Sir Debbie Reddy, who are members of the committee, Terry Chamberlain, Paul Gibbons, and myself, members of the committee, Mr. Gordon Leedy, who is also from Ty and Bond, and our illustrious town manager, Mr. Mark Prohensky. And we've got some people in the, okay,
Yeah,
so.
you have a hand up as well, but
Hand up about what?
don't know. Let's find out.
All right. So, Ferlato, what do you need, my friend?
She's muted.
Hello, Susan, unmute yourself. We're not going to do this during the meeting from now on. Okay. She's eating dinner. Never mind. So the first person who's going to speak, I believe.
Well, you can start things off if you'd like.
Go ahead, ladies.
So, my name is Julie Andujar. So Debbie and I, we've been meeting to go over the current conditions of Grove Street and Dewey Park. And according to the rest of the commission, there's opportunity to replace various elements at Grove Street Park and to perhaps design a new park for Dewey, which currently only has a swing set and some benches. So like Ms. Smith said, this is really an information gathering session, and what we'd really like to know, and you'll see on the form, is basically what you'd like to see at the parks for your community and for the entire community of Great Barrington, because what we're finding is that many families and people are going outside of town, especially people with young children, to use parks and facilities elsewhere. So at French Park, in Stockbridge, Armenia, you name it, where there is where there are fields, where there are playground equipment, they're going there instead of here. So we want to kind of create more dynamic and unique settings that will service the entire community, the local neighborhood and the entire community. And we're thinking that these parks are going to serve many different types of users. So from young children to people who just want to read under some shade, to people who need wide open spaces to run or to do any other kind of sports, and possibly pavilion or court sports, which we do have at Grove Street, for instance. So we'd really like to know what you'd like to see, but also more importantly, what is not available here. And also some kind of comments on the existing parks and what works, what doesn't. Specific structures, specific layout. We're not going to be talking about design today. We just want to know what is needed here. What would keep families and other users here in town and using our parks, because we have so many of them. Ty and Bond a few years ago did a very comprehensive survey on conditions of the parks, conditions of the different playground structures, I guess the grounds themselves, benches, you name it. And what we'd like to see going forward is like a really holistic approach in treating every property uniquely, so that there's a lot of variation, very user-friendly, and something that really draws people to come. I know personally, as a parent of a young child, that I have found many things lacking in a lot of our parks. I've also still spoken to a lot of people in the community that find some of the parks challenging to use. And as just someone who wants to go on my own, I've also found that there's either a lot of shade or we could use like more comfortable seating, just a variety of things. And I think many people agree that we have some blank spaces, you know, where we can just do anything, I feel, If that can just be redesigned and remaneuvered, but we really would like as much information as possible. The forms that we designed basically list different types of elements. Today, we're really going to focus on playgrounds because I think that's the most pressing issue from what I've heard from my colleagues. So we're going to really focus on playground elements, but there is a section at the bottom for more, whatever else comes to mind. What we're going to present after current conditions is just images of playgrounds that we feel have drawn people to them. Playgrounds locally around the world with different types of design that would kind of favor an entire community or very early childhood. Just really to jog what your memory or to inspiration for what's possible. So all of that is valid and we'd like as much detailed information as possible. The forms are going to be available in the select board offices. I don't know if there's a deadline for them, but they'll be there. You can submit them to the office when you're done with them. Again, it's an open deadline as far as we're concerned. And
Well, we'd like to do it in the next 2 to 3 months. I don't want this.
Will there be an online form as well?
not at this moment.
What?
Online form.
Yes, though, this can be put online. They can print it off. Sure, absolutely.
But not filled out online.
No.
Submitted online.
Print,
There's no way we can do like a survey online like a Lucky.
no, we did not do that for this.
They already designed like that.
Yes. So we're trying, we're just trying to get this together as quickly as possible. And we just didn't have the time to go that long. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Levy, who is from Time Bond, the town engineer. And if you could review the current conditions of the parks, and then I will provide our own plans for the rest. After you.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name again is Gordon Levy, and I'm a landscape architect and certified planner with Ty and Bond. We've done a lot of work with the town. I've been involved with the recreational work here for the last almost going on 3 years now. So, and we have some things that we'd like to share. This meeting is primarily around Grove Street and Dewey Parks, but I wanted to give just a quick overview of what, I'll get rid of this. Just wanted to give you a quick overview of where we've been. And we started with an inventory of all of the park facilities in Great Barrington. And on this graphic, the darker green, although it's a little hard to see which are light and which are dark, but the darker green ones are what would be really community-wide facilities like Olympian Fields, the Lake Mansfield areas, and some of the larger properties that are really unimproved are, passive recreation, and they really serve the entire community. The lighter green properties are what I would, for lack of a better term, call neighborhood parks, but because your community is the way it is, I mean, different parks may have different facilities that serve different populations, as well as just being focused on the neighborhood. So, and these circles are really quarter-mile walking areas, which is kind of what you think about when you think about a neighborhood facility. So we inventoried everything. Then we also did a community preference survey, which some of you may have participated in. We got 247 responses, I believe. And we asked several questions. One was to pick up to 5 activities that you enjoy, and the top responses were walking, hiking, swimming, playgrounds, and boating, kayaking. The next question was recreation areas in Great Barrington that you've actually visited in the last 12 months. And the top ones were Lake Mansfield, Town Hall Park, and Memorial Field. What recreation opportunities would you like to add? And the top responses were bike paths, walking paths, and playgrounds. and then we kind of narrowed the focus to Dewey and Grove Street parks. What investments should be made here, and the top responses were children's play equipment, benches, and barbecues. We talked about what people would be willing to support in the recreation world, participating in maintenance and cleanup, and paying a little bit more in taxes if it was targeted were top responses. And the top actions that came out of the survey were to improve existing recreational facilities and improve conservation and open space land with low impact amenities. And the vast majority of people were from Great Barrington. They weren't people who commute here to work. So with Grove Street Park, this is kind of an overview of the neighborhood. You have Bentley Road down at the bottom, and the wastewater treatment plant with the newly constructed Bentley apartments down here. There's quite a big hill, and then you have the main part of the park adjacent to Grove Street, and there is a spur off of Warren Avenue that provides access to the park as well. There is a really beautiful stream that comes down through the park and could provide some opportunities to both provide access to an environment that isn't very common here in terms of the riparian corridor, and also could provide connectivity between Grove Street and Bentley Road for people who either want to go either place, or for people from the entire neighborhood to access them. Here's some existing conditions, photos. You have the concrete play area up by Grove Street. There is a tot lot that is fairly modern, but doesn't really meet modern standards for fall zone attenuation and so forth. You have the swings that are pretty modern and do largely meet the CPSC guidelines for fall zone attenuation. Here's the access over to Warren Street, and then this is a picture of the stream corridor. Really, the other kinds of issues that we have there is that parking is a challenge. If somebody were coming to the park to use it from outside the neighborhood, and there's really no place for people to park. If somebody's
There is now.
there is now.
There are 4 spots, yeah,
But it still remains a
limited parking.
a limited
Correct.
facility. The other thing is that ADA access or accessibility to the park is really an issue. So those are things that we may want to consider when we redo things out here. Just a note about that, about a pretty common situation in Great Barrington. You have a lot of recreation facilities. Many of them do not meet current standards for safety. And that's an issue because it really creates a liability problem for the town. So as we think about redoing things, we need to pay attention to those essentially national guidelines. I'm sure that the town's insurer will be very pleased about that as well. This is just a closer view of the park. The stream cuts down through the side. Hardcourt is in this location. There's actually a drinking fountain out by the road, benches and the game table and so forth in this area, the top area, and the swing. So even though it's a fairly large property, because of the topography, there's a fairly limited amount of stuff that we can do there. Dewey Park is an interesting place because we have the courthouse, which is a functioning courthouse. They have their own needs for access and for transporting people in and out and so forth. But it also provides opportunities because they have a parking lot that could be used by people using the park. And there's a fairly large residential neighborhood around that would be a draw to that park. So this is really a place where you could do community-wide facilities because of the vehicular access, but also focus on providing walkability and connectivity to the surrounding neighborhoods so that we can get folks recreating close to their homes. This again is an issue with, these swings, frankly, need to be replaced as soon as we can do that because they meet no current standard. There has been work done out there. These are new benches that are out in front of the courthouse. This is a new fence along, I'm not sure which, that's Gilmore Avenue. The other fence, as you can see, has seen better days, so that's something we need to consider. And then there's this open field that could be used for a variety of things. I'm not, speaking from a personal perspective, I'm not a huge fan of filling up spaces with stuff. I like to have multi-purpose facilities that can be used in a variety of different ways. And have an attractive kind of green oasis that you can come and it sort of functions as a shared yard. That being said, there are opportunities to do, there's quite a bit of space here. You wouldn't want to do a full-size soccer field because that would take up the entire thing. But you could do pickleball courts, you could do, smaller kind of recreational fields that might be able to be programmed and take some of the pressure off some of the other parts of town. The other thing that I was thinking about was maybe a community garden might be a nice thing to do as well. So that is really the end of my presentation. As we go forward, I guess, as a designer, I would be interested in knowing if folks have issues with these park facilities that we really ought to consider. And, things that we should fix and other questions and comments. So
Okay.
we may want to save that for later, but, we'll let Julia.
Right, what I'd like to do at this point is I'd like Julie and Sir Debbie, now that Gordon has given you a back, and I know people have got things they want to say, but now just let the ladies do what they're gonna do. You will have an opportunity to speak. Okay, that's what it's called, public input. Okay, that's what we want today, but we need to keep things in sort of a orderly fashion. So ladies, what have you got to show?
Try to share the screen. Yeah. Okay. So this is another recap, an overview of the properties. We're going to start with Grove Street Park. And Mr. Lee also already showed us basically the extent of the park. And it is, in our opinion, just a very unique space because coming from Grove Street, you have this kind of, you have a court, you have some parking, and you have an open space. But then as you progress further into this wooded section, you encounter a stream and some significant topography, but that makes it a very lovely place to just hike and go through and come out at Bentley Avenue, which incidentally has no signage, which would be a really nice thing for people on that side of the road, of that side of the property, to kind of be able to access the park through the woods, over the bridge, through the stream, and then kind of come in to this lovely playground space. This is Grove Street approaching, from Bridge Street, and a view of the existing basketball and pickleball courts. This is looking at the parking spaces that were just recently created. There's room for about 4. And as you move back toward the park, essentially what Mr. Levy showed us, the small early childhood structure here, a set of climbing bars, which I think are not up to code, a little rocking element, and then the swings. And here's another view. We have some existing benches and tables, which are in pretty decent condition. They're quite nice, and there's plenty of shade, as you can see. And that is, and here are the swings. And another view of the small playground. So you see, this is for like the very, very young children, and not in the best condition. This is the view from Bentley Avenue, and this here is the entrance up into the wooded section. You would cross the creek. There's a metal bridge there, and then just make your way all the way up to Grove Street at the playground. Now for Dewey, we have essentially the same presentation. This is an overview. This is Gilmore Avenue. This is Hillside, the courthouse, the entrance to the parking lot this way. And the set of swings is here with the little bench. And I'll show you views from other corners, and you'll see that actually this is a very large space. And if you were to put playground equipment here, this is quite large. This is much larger than Giggle Park, even this whole area here. So there would be really no need to even impede on a lot of the open space. So if people want just, I agree with Mr. Levy. I think it's really important to have many different types of space in one area, multi-usage. And I think views are very important, and clutter can be a real detriment, especially to neighbors who may not want to be looking into a playground particularly, especially if you don't have a lot of tree cover. And as you were mentioning a community garden, I had written the same thing about 2 minutes earlier, and I think that would be incredible. And there's room for a lot. We did a walkthrough the other day. There's so much going on. I don't even know what the limitations are vis-a-vis the courthouse. If some spaces have to be reserved for just for their uses. But I feel like there's, if we want to, if we are allowed to, I feel like there are more than 50 parking spaces in total here. Something can be even over to a court, maybe. So I think this is really the carte blanche. I think shade could be a lovely thing. When we looked at Dewey, we were reminded of the conditions at French Park in Egremont, which there's a lot of open space. There is a baseball court, there is a dog run, there's a community garden, and there are playgrounds, and there are woods. So a real multifaceted space. And I thought like Dewey is a really wonderful opportunity to preserve an element of all of that. Here's a view looking into the parking area. The swing set is back here. Here's a view of it. So you can see there's a bench. There's not a lot of shade. The swings need upgraded. Here's the swing. So again, it could use a refresh. And this is from the other side. So now we're looking at Gilmore Avenue from the opposite corner. So that swing set would be behind this building, and we have all of this open space. It really is much bigger than it appears here. And from the opposite corner, looking in. And this is actually a very pleasant spot just because of all of the shade trees, and it's kind of inspired me to add a little bit more of that. And there is street parking, which is quite nice. Yes. Okay. So basically, that's an overview of the current conditions, and we have just a nice slideshow of what we've seen around and what's happening in different towns around us. Okay. So this is an early childhood combination. So I think what we like about this one is not only natural elements, but shade. We can look at substrate, we can look at enclosed little structures that really, if you want to not be in the sun or playing, you can kind of go in there with a tent. There are climbing things, nice metal slide, and also in background, I think I have a better slide of this, but there are other elements that allow for other purposes, just like this walkway. It serves as a seating area, a place to park strollers. I just think this is a very small space in Brussels. And it is used, the day I visited, it was visited by, I don't know, hundreds of kids. Another similar idea. This is an early childhood little section. This time they use using sand. Again, a covered area and little platforms. They're very easy. And this one, as you can see, it could be very simple, but it's very functional. Ropes just that you can use to guide yourself along, just single logs, rope, more enclosed spaces. This is also a very small urban area. This is Paris. This is Boston. Boston has just installed a very new, beautiful playground behind their town hall. And this is approximately a 1 acre space. It looks very expensive. It's very designed. But again, this is like really for an urban area. And then I'm just providing these photos to show you what little structures, how much action a small structure, small elements can provide. So this little cube, for instance, has climbing rope above, below, swings, integrated, just a lot. It fits a lot, and it's another idea. The substrate is different this time. We saw sand, bark, and this is more of a spongy material. And they actually took their topography and worked with it and created this hill. They also have a fabulous, very large water feature, but I don't know if that's a bit much to ask for our town. This is in Ghent. This is just a school playground at the Hawthorne Valley Waldorf School. We're seeing a lot of these rope structures. There might be a nice alternative to think about versus a traditional monkey bars. A lot of people can fit. It's quite safe, but there is a perception of risk and challenge while also being completely safe, and allowing a lot of people to use it at the same time. Here's a smaller version. This is in Hillsdale, just off of Main Street, in their little playground. There's something to think about. Here is another view of that Parisian playground, and just another thing that comes to mind about including in a playground, it might be a sandbox, because I used to see them all the time at different playgrounds. I don't see them much anymore, and I thought, I'll put it out there in case it is something that would be desirable as a large setting like this, or as like more contained play area. Sculpture. So we're introducing artistic elements. This is Belgium again. Sculpture might be a really nice thing just for art, to introduce art into the playground. functional art. And here's another view of that platform system, which seems to be, I'm no engineer, but it seems pretty doable and pretty great and very simple. This is Boston again. Another vision for slides and how different materials are being used these days. We're seeing this a lot in many of the more recently renovated playgrounds. We're seeing poured concrete and metal, things that are not abrasive. But what we're finding just from experience is that a lot of the plastic creates an incredible amount of static and a lot of grip when you try to go down with sneakers or any kind of footwear. And these we actually tested and they were amazing. And they do the same kind of work as a metal, a traditional metal. Here's Brooklyn. It's wonderful. I think you can see, enjoy this. This is a close-up of the swing structures at Hawthorne Valley Waldorf School. There are now different elements being introduced. This net, this round net, I think is really great. It allows for a lot of people to climb on, and it's a lot of fun. It's another way of thinking about swings. There are these tandem structure elements, so you can always think about doing the traditional seats and adding something like this. I think would be nice, something to think about. This is French Park. French Park has this traditional climbing dome. We have that now at Lake Mansfield, pretty usable. And what I'm noticing just personally is that a lot of structure that you can see through, like instead of like this wall that you can't really see past, the ones that have like more of a view, I don't know, it's not very scientific, but I see a lot of kids kind of gravitate towards them. Towards that, because there's a view. I know that there's a new structure at Lake Mansfield that's kind of like a climbing wall, but you can't see beyond that. You can't see the lake beyond that, and it's hard for parents to see if kids are climbing from the other side. So I feel like the orientation may be a little bit off there. But again, these are just kind of inspiration photos, and just to show you what people are gravitating toward. Here's traditional swings in Brussels. Again, very simple, but something to think about. We're not in this design phase, but when we eventually do meet about design, we might want to have very site-specific ideas in mind, and to reintroduce these flat seats to swings, because I love swings for myself, but I cannot do those the curvy. They just hurt my hips so much, and I just can't stand it for very long. So we can think about that. Here's the platform again, shade, and basically that is our just inspirational presentation. And if Karen, you're okay with it, we can open it up to.
What I would like to do is, I want to hear from people here. That's what I want to hear. I think that what Gordon did and what you did. The other thing we have to remember, and I know that a lot of the elements that you're looking at, you would fall over if you know how much they cost.
Yeah, thank you.
I think, I mean, I love the idea of all this, but we may have to phase this over 6 years because of the cost is just, I mean, the new Lake Mansfield, okay? There's 4 elements there that were donated by a family in Great Barrington. It was $52,000 for those 4 elements, just so you're aware, okay?
What is the budget?
There is, we're not getting into money at this point because whatever it is, we have to work within it. We want to hear from you. I don't want to put a restriction on it. I want to hear what you have to say. So why don't we we'll do this like in kindergarten. Yep, pause up. Yes, ma'am.
Martha
Stand
Archambault.
right up, please.
Martha Archambault, 17 Grove Street, right across from the park. The layout for the park actually consists of crossing Grove and goes alongside the brook. Used to be a ladies' lunch sandwich sitting area, so there's more space.
Yeah.
What makes Grove Street Park incredible as it is the brook. that keeps it separate from any other park around here. Why not just let that be what brings people in? Not necessarily, I mean, there's playgrounds popping up all over, especially if we're gonna do something big or there's more space. This is, and along with, how it has to be preserved because of the water, conservation wise, and you know, maybe some paths, benches, but the selling point for that is the beauty of the pines.
Mhm.
The running brook, I mean, you know, showing off that you can go from the path that's already created on the other side of the river, and bring it up, you know, people up that way and gain access, you know, which I didn't even know the bridge was there for, you know, for years.
You may not want to know where that bridge is there,
I've
because
actually.
we may need to not have that bridge there. It's a safety issue.
Right.
That's
It can have rebuilt and it used as a calling card for people in town or the new, you know, apartments that went up. Because those people actually use the park. I've been
Absolutely.
here for 17 years and the park has remained empty. And it wasn't parking. It was just the way it was, the
Right.
changing of families, kids grew up, they left.
Right.
So I'd love to see just, you know, a Zen park. You know, less use of water for maintenance, you know, less upkeep.
Okay, thank you.
And they used to freeze the courts in the winter and it was skatable. And that has gone. So that's another element that could be brought in, which makes it incredibly special. Again, it's already what it is that makes.
All right, I'm gonna ask you all to take it within a 3-minute period of time. Okay, go ahead. And then Jamie, you're after this lady. And then,
Hands raised on.
Oops. Don't count that in a minute. 33 Grass Street, right across the park, and I'm speaking actually for Megan, because her microphone's not on. And she lives across the park from that too, and she has 2 young children. And, we love our little park. It needs to move from Soviet style era park to modern day park. And, and what Megan says, and I agree, is that the swings are in good condition. So we don't really feel we need to do anything with that. And the early childhood structure really needs to have, it's not good. And have a complex, climbing structure up to code. And I agree with Martha, we have a beautiful walk down to the park, to the stream. I mean, it would be great to have like a slide down to the creek for that. That would just be fun. And, I also think just as far as the existing park, it's really seems to me, and also I think some of our neighbors, that there's no reason to have that fence around that concrete thing, because there's no the basketball court faces the street and there's no barrier. The fence doesn't go there. And just one other comment, if we can take away that really ugly piece of plywood, that would be appreciated. It's a real eyesore. Thank you. And I really appreciate your presentation. It's really great.
Daniel Shankin. You have 3 minutes there, coach. Go for it.
Hi there. Good to see you. I agree with most of what has been said, my other Grove Street residents. We're in the park, 5 times a week. We'd love to see, an updated play structure. We really liked our friend who showed the natural things, seeing a playground that kind of fit in with the landscape would be really nice. One of the more important things I do think is fixing that bridge. The bridge is a mess. We use the bridge all the time. We're climbing in that creek all summer long. We're playing in the creek. I would love to be part of a cleanup because there's tires and metal stuff in there. So, I would love to see the creek be cleaned out for a lot of reasons. But yeah, for the most part, I agree with all my friends here. And thank you for the consideration.
Jamie?
Jamie Goldenberg, 63 Eastern Street. The current swing set that is there is more of a deterrent than an attraction. I have children and I live in the neighborhood,
and don't walk that way. I refuse to walk that way because there is one big kid swing. And there's a bench, but it's in like a really weird place that's like farther away. So we'll like bring a book and then the kids have to take turns using the swing. And it causes so many fights, I just can't handle it. So we avoid going to the park completely.
Which park?
That's at the Dewey Park.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So,
I went up there and looked at it today. There's
Yeah.
one infant swing, one next
yeah,
age group, and
One or
then,
two more.
and the other two, there's only one swing, and there's not even any.
yeah. And
Thank
there's-
you.
Okay, so there's that, but it would be amazing. That neighborhood has a lot of young families. A lot of them would like to be here today. I talked to them at the bus stop on the corner of East and Cottage. They can't be here because, like me, they have children at home. I got a babysitter, and that's how important this is to me. Having a park there, having a gathering place, having a place where we can all go after we're at the bus stop, where the kids could be playing together, having one of those little book boxes, like there are really simple things that can make it a little gathering space. French Park is where we go. That's it. We get in the car and we drive over to French Park. There are picnic tables there. There's amazing swings. There's a place to put your blanket out and have a little picnic. I asked my kids, I have video, it's really adorable, but I won't play it. They want a structure where they can play house. So that like risk stuff of like having the ropes to climb, I watch them play on that and they love it. But they also sometimes just wanna be playing mommy or whatever. So they want little like rooms and like a pretend kitchen and stuff like that. A slide, they said a slide, and they also were like, and maybe we could have better swings, which was like a little heartbreaking. So that's,
Andrew?
Yeah, hi there. Andrew Blackman here. Lived across from the Dewey Park for about 20 years now. First statement is, for me, it's important that everyone, we all remember that it belongs to everyone in town, not just those of us who live across the street from it. So it'll be interesting to consider what the town needs. I think part of what that could be is, I think young families are underserved in the area. There's a parking lot that, people can come there from across town. I think pickleball seems, I don't play it, and I know it's a rough crowd, but it seems like pickleball is an underserved community as well. Let's see what else. There's a big parking lot there. I think one basketball hoop for people to shoot up against off to one side might be nice. It costs very little. I don't think people want to have basketball games and tournaments, but maybe one hoop for a quick little pickup game. And I think the open space thing is a little bit overrated. The fact is the field just sits there and people aren't using it. So I think we could fill it up with some stuff that's worthwhile that would help everyone in town, including barbecues. I just think it should be an inclusive park. We've got the parking, we've got the space, and it's an open field. So something to think about. But I would say
Thank you, Andrew.
barbecues, playground, possibly a pickleball and one basketball hoop would be things to consider.
Thank you, ma'am.
Alexandra Perfumo, 25 Grove Street, right across from the Grove Street Park. I first of all want to say that as an early childhood educator that I've been for many years, I think you would find some really good inspiration from the Berkshire Waldorf School Early Childhood Center. There's a lot of use of natural materials and for climbing and problem solving. We want children to have that sense of risk, but you don't need plastic to do it with. So more ropes, more logs, all kinds of things that can be used. Secondly, I agree, the large plywood plaque is an eyesore, and it's been there for a year now, and it's untreated, it's warping. I don't know why it was put up. I don't know who asked for it, but we didn't. And for those of us who do live right across the street, it's really an eyesore. As is the chain link fence, which has some bizarre sort of patching done to it with extra chain link. I'm not sure. And then, of course, the basketball itself, where people do use quite a bit, far more than the pickleball court. The basketball has an opening. There's the ball is going to miss. It's going to go into the street. So I'm not sure what the purpose is of the chimney fence, but it's rather useless. I think to include all demographics, both early childhood and the elderly, the geriatric crowd, which I won't look at you, but us, you know, to have that sort of Zen park, you have sort of Zen park, that quiet sort of meditative area, resting area, because even young children need quiet to get away. They need that sort of ability to see nature. So I think just think of both ends, you know, of the demographic, and really look at the natural stuff that is available. Please, plastic, it deteriorates, it fades in the sun, and actually ends up being sharp. Off the corners break, children get hurt from it. So I would have asked you to think about other substances rather than plastic.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Tamar Gordon, 47 Grove Street, across from the park. I really agree with all of the comments that were made. I think, and speaking to the designer for a minute, that creating a kind of integrated design that would be invitational, you know, for people to come in, for children and for families, you know, to come in. We already have the basketball court is quite used. I would say it's the most used part, you know, of the park. And we have to figure out a design to enclose it. Because as was said before, there are two gigantic openings right at the place where the basketball flies into the Khrushchev era monkey bars, which have already decimated our children. And also basketballs going in the other direction. So that needs to be completely rebuilt. But the basketball court is a really, especially for older kids, you know, because we're looking at the spectrum, the whole spectrum of populations, because we want to have people not just from Grove Street, but around. There's not a lot of places where you can play basketball. So there it is. And just in terms of creating early childhood, I'm completely in agreement. And I really love the idea of using rope and other sort of natural things that are really cool for kids to, you know, really use their sort of climbing and problem solving skills and strength, you know, to get across from one part to another, you know, maybe like a rope ladder, you know, something like that, to replace the piece that's there and not spending a huge amount of money at that. And again, and finally, there should be an inviting place for people to sit, for parents to sit, you know, while their children are playing, for people to picnic. And so, you know, and then of course, there's this gorgeous creek and all of the natural features in the pine forest. It's a beautiful park. It just needs a little update, a little loving care. Did you want to say something?
Can I just add one thing?
No.
Okay.
Susan Furlato, there are other people going to speak before anybody else gets to speak twice, okay? Go ahead, Susan Furlato. Susan, unmute yourself. Try again.
Me? Okay.
Yes,
Can you?
now go.
Hi, it's Jill Cancelleri with Susan Furlato.
There we go.
So I think all these ideas sound wonderful, and it's going to be, they sound inclusive and really representing all the different constituents in town. I would like to say two things. One is put in a vote for the pickleball courts, because I think that's really, really needed for our town. But I also had a question for Mr. Leedy, and I was wondering about the survey that he started his presentation with. And I was curious to know who was surveyed and how was that survey disseminated?
It was posted online. It was a Microsoft Forms survey that I can't remember how long it was up, but it was up for
quite a few months.
Quite a few months.
None of us knew about it. No one on Grove Street knew about it or spoke out.
It was promoted on the town social media.
Yeah,
How were people made aware of it?
it was almost completely but via social media and this commission.
No, this commit, no.
No,
No,
I
no,
mean,
no.
well, I mean.
Do not-
we talked about
Do
it.
not assign that to us,
Oh,
because
fair enough.
if I was going to make sure everybody heard about it, I didn't even know about it till after the fact. So
Right.
I would strongly suggest, okay, I understand, Mr. Leedy, that you did the survey, but I would strongly suggest that survey should be reintroduced and redone, because I
Yeah.
believe there are a lot of people that would have a lot more to say, other than, I think it was limited. I do, I really do.
Yeah,
With
I
all due
would
respect.
And we can certainly do that. That's not,
Okay.
that's not an issue.
We did
Nobody
not
do
spring that. Hold on, Jill, hold on.
Yeah.
We did not spring that, okay, that I recall. And if we did, my age is showing. I don't recall it, so that would just be a suggestion. Ladies, you have another minute. What would you like to say, Susan or Jill?
Well, first of all, thank you for suggesting that the survey be redone, because I would just hate to see, decisions made based on such a small number of inputs from people. So I think it would be of great value to widely disseminate the survey and really make sure that people, like a forum like this, where people can come and voice their interests and their concerns, would be really helpful, along with an actual widespread survey. So I think that's great. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah, well, one of the reasons we have a forum is for, it does include a lot of different elements to playgrounds or open space and additional comments. So the form may not be a survey like the one that Mr. Leedy did, but I think it would serve a similar purpose, and it is, you can get it at town hall, you can fill it out with a pen and paper and just leave it for us, and we will get all that information together.
good. What I'm gonna ask right now, ladies, would you please send this digitally to Mr. Perhensky so it can go online? And then what we'll do is we'll get the PR person and get this thing out and put a time sensitive, whatever, not only this, but also the other survey. Okay? Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen Schwinn. I live at 7 Brook Lane. First of all, thank you to everyone who's doing work here. Literally 40 years ago, I was the first park playground, Great Barrington Playground park coordinator, and it was a great job. It was my first job, and it was. I'm just so grateful to see that these two parks are being kind of brought back. I'm here because I have a 12-year-old daughter who is in a wheelchair. And so I just feel like I would love to have anything that Great Barrington does. Just make sure it is not only tokenly inclusive, but just completely inclusive. Because that not only includes all children, but it includes strollers, it includes elderly, it includes walkers, it includes people with difficulty with balance. So I just feel like I really want to make a pitch that anything that you put up or have or put near a waterway, or it just has it has an opportunity for people who are challenged with accessibility. And I think that if you have any questions with that, I would advocate that you include people in decision-making as it relates to what is truly inclusive versus what is inclusive from someone who's able-bodied. That's it.
Well, I'm gonna take that comment as you're volunteering when we get to that. How does that feel, madam?
I second it.
Well, I will tell you that the only reason we have handicap swings in this town is because Kristen came to me, was it 3 years ago?
Yeah.
And said, and then we ordered them and we've got them up. So we're ready to do that. Yeah, and I know that my point is that we need people to advocate.
Yeah.
From a challenge point of view.
Well, because it just includes everyone.
Yeah,
It
I get
doesn't,
you.
Like, it doesn't have to be exclusively for someone who has a handicap. It's just have it be acceptable to everyone.
Right, so everybody can get there.
Yeah, for sure.
Including me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's a good point.
But
Kelly.
in all seriousness, including grandparents who would like to go to the park, to what, you know,
Yeah.
I think there's just there is a really wonderful inclusive playground in Boston. I think it's Marilena. I'm not sure. It's a fully inclusive playground that every element there is meant for everyone. So
Great.
if you're looking for inspiration, it's a good one.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Kristen.
thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Hi, my name is Emily Maple. I am, I live at 116 East Street, so right on the corner of Cottage and East. And I just want to bring to light, first of all, I was so excited to hear, thank you, Amy, for passing on the information, that we're gonna talk about parks, because that's been something that, we moved here a few years ago and, really struggled to find somewhere that was like great for my young children. I have an infant, she's not flying yet, but she will soon, and a 3-year-old. And we've, consistently like gotten in the stroller and gone to Giggle Park, and it's just not great for young kids. The swings are about as much as you can do, the slide's really tall, which for older kids is great. But the toys and the playground equipment is like kind of single use. And it's for kids who are older. So like my father is like running up to the little seesaw thing and putting his fingers where they can get like pinched and, all of that good stuff. So I would really like to make a pitch for, like everyone else has said, and especially Kristen, thank you so much, including like an inclusive playground, especially like Dewey Park. I don't know if we had the change in demographics in the last 5 to 10 years on that neighborhood, but there are children everywhere. The bus stop on East End Cottage in the morning is totally packed. There's another bus stop a couple blocks away. There are several children there. I know that the neighborhood historically has had a lot of families in it, but there has been a flood of young children coming in. And it would be really amazing if we had like a multi-use area at Dewey Park. I love that idea for Grove Street too. So, like the pines there are incredible. Like use what we have. That doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And, if it's multi-use, then it's like, it can be used for picnics, it can be used for pickleball or basketball or whatever, like older kids, younger kids. We have such a beautiful community here, you guys. Like I like pinch myself some days being able to live in an area like this and having somewhere that we can all, like Jeannie said, take the kids from the bus stop and just like shuttle everybody over to the park would be really wonderful. There's parking there. I'm sure that it would be a great attraction. It's walkable to town. I mean, it's just, I know that we're asking for a big investment, because everything costs money. And if we do it right this time, this is gonna last for decades. And just like be really, really incredible. So thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Diller. Nick, you're up. Nick, you're muted. You need to unmute yourself. There you go. Talk, Nick, go. Go ahead, Nick.
Mute.
He's unmuted. Nick Diller, if you're there, please sign in.
No, I did that.
Everybody calm down. The problem is some are not technologically advanced. Okay. First of all, I want to thank you for all coming because I think it's incredibly important to us that we get input. And I'd like to thank Sir Debbie and Julie for doing all the work that they did because this is thankless. I also want to make people aware that we are the Park and Rec Commission, not the Playground Commission. There are a lot of things that have to be taken into account when somebody says it really doesn't cost that much to fix the bridge appropriately is $100 grand to get it safe. Okay, so there's a lot of things that people are like, well, it's no big deal, just do it. We may, and I'm glad that Ty and Bond were here. I think what we'd like to do is look at the spaces and figure out what can be done. First of all, I can tell you right now, Grove Street, 3 or 4 of those structures are coming down in the next 2 weeks because they're ridiculous. They should have come down, but somebody says, oh, don't take anything down until you have enough money to put everything up. Well, guess what? We can't do that. We need to get rid of those things and look at that. First of all, what we have to take down, is there something of merit there that should go back up? Do you understand what I'm saying? What was there? So there's a ton of considerations and input is where it's at. And let me say that not everybody's gonna be happy with what our decisions are. But understand that we are trying to look at this budgetarily, that it is acceptable to all ages. I think the shade thing is very important. There's a National Shade Foundation. There's grants available. And we need somebody to help us write a grant to put in some shade flies, these big triangles, things like that. Because it's a lot quicker to put up a shade fly than it is to put up a big elm tree. So I think that, that's the type of stuff we're working on, and this is not a one and done. I think it's all part of a process, and I think that, using the net, one of the things when we were putting in the playground down at the, at Lake Mansfield, the donors came with a design that was frightening. It was fluorescent, plastic, we were like, thanks. Seriously, we need to go with brown and green, okay? Can we mute this down? And it took 2 years to get it to the point where we think it's functional, and every time I go by, everybody's loving it. So that's a really good model. But again, that was over $50,000 just to get that as it is. So if you're thinking we can do this, this will be phased, it will go in pieces, and this is where this guy and Mr. Aberdale, there are some things that we should be able to do in-house that won't be, that prohibitively expensive. But the other thing I want you all to remember is that the playground is not Park and Rec. Okay, we have other concerns for people, and here's a fact that most people know. There are more people over the age of 70 than there are under the age of 8 in this community. So we're working with a whole raft of stuff. So it's just not that, but we realize that Grove and Dewey, because of the location, we don't want to repeat the same sort of age groups and elements in those two parks, because they're close enough that you can move yourself. You know what I'm saying? So we're taking all this information down. I appreciate it. Paul, do you have anything you want to say?
No, not at this time.
Terry?
I have a question that maybe Joe knows, over at Dewey, there's a picnic table up near the building. Is that a town picnic table or is that the court's picnic table?
I don't know the answer to that. What I do know is we're in the process of building 12 new picnic tables.
Right, to distribute.
Hearing what we've heard today, we will get some at all parks. Like Mansfield.
When I was there today, I saw a picnic table up next to the
I know
building.
the
I
court
didn't know if there was.
officers who use that one. So we'll get some near the swing set and under the shady trees. We'll get a few around. If we need to build a few more, we'll build a few more.
Yeah, the lumber's been ordered, so that's gonna be in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We'll have those. And that's the type of stuff we can do, especially in the winter. The guys, sometimes they can build stuff like that. So we're just starting. And Joe, how long have you been here? Okay. The amount of change and the amount of things that have been completed since Joe has been here. I personally have been on this committee for 20 years. We have done more in the 8 months than were done in the 8 years beforehand. So give us some more time. We'd like the input.
Well, the next 8 months will be great then too, right?
Oh, yeah.
What's your name? I need to know who I'm talking to.
I'm Fred Frere. I live at 40 Grove Street.
Fred Ferrer. I certainly hope so.
And then Grove Street, the water fountain isn't operating.
That's right.
I don't think about water fountains are supposed to be because of COVID.
I know they.
No, that's done.
Yeah, we're done with the water.
Yeah.
And the other question is.
No, water fountains are now allowed.
Yeah, oh, they are?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Water fountains because of water stations.
Yeah, and also people.
Well, there are 3 water stations downtown.
Yeah.
I know.
They open them up.
Yeah, they're opened up. There's one here, there's one at the library, there's one in front of town hall, there's one at the library. And if the water's not working, if there are issues, please get in touch with me or Kay Smith at townofgb.org or Jay Aberdale at townofgb.org. I'm the chair of the Park and Rec and he's the head of the DPW. So if I get a complaint, it goes right to him. And he's always excited about that. Anybody else? Any other comments? Gordon, do you have anything you want to say? I saw you doing a lot of the bobblehead today.
I mean,
A lot of
this is all-
bobblehead.
This has all been really good and it all needs to get cycled through you know, we create a vision and then figure out how to implement it, right?
Right, and
So-
I think at this point, it's you and the ladies who've done such a great job putting all this stuff together. It's like, okay, so let's just start with Grove and Dewey. Let's just deal with those two to start. We don't, or just one of them. I don't care what we do. The first thing I'd like to do is get the stuff out of Grove Street that's dangerous.
So.
Which stuff?
I think
Oh,
we
God.
can take a couple of approaches here. There's some immediate stuff, the stuff out.
Yeah,
The Parks Commission wants that, which was a rebound board, I believe, that was put in there. All the fence, you want that out. That's easy enough to go.
well, it is, it went,
In the wrong spot.
excuse me. That was set up so we could start using those as outdoor pickleball courts because we have no other courts at this juncture. And that was going to be used as a practice board. Now, I understand that it's not, you don't like it, and maybe we have to rethink it, but that was the original thought of it. So I hear you.
Nobody's used it.
So.
Well, that's because the problem with the court is there's a lot of cracks, so we have to resurface it in order to get it correct. So it's always 9 things in front of it.
So the other thing I heard loud and clear that the basketball gets used up there and could use some improvements. I'll explore some pricing. I put a couple hoops on either end.
Okay.
Fences, and I'll share that with the commission.
Great.
Well,
use the basketball.
Yeah, it sounds like it's
Like
only
only a
accommodating.
couple people use pickleball court. It's really-
Parking and.
Oh, the surface does need work up there. We do have some money in the budget for this coming fiscal year for surface. Some preliminary estimate shows.
Right.
But, so we are focusing on that. So I think some of those are the immediate things, the picnic tables, maybe a couple barbecue things quickly in, they're inexpensive things that get immediate use. So the other approach I would like to take with Gordon, it's kind of him and I digest what we heard.
Great.
I think it's a great idea of that stream going down through there, if we could elaborate on that and make it a little bit more accessible and usable.
Well, I'd like to see Greenagers get involved in this, and I would also like, I know we get volunteers from Berkshire School, that they get in there and get that area cleaned out. That could be a great volunteer community day, is to get that straightened out.
And maybe just have a sign, a nice signage down at where that is. I mean, that's easy. Still not expensive, right? If you want people to know, I mean, it's like a secret way to get in.
At Grove Street, you're gonna have to do something eventually about parking, because if it becomes more used, they're planning to support parking. You know, you can't plug up the street for emergency.
Yes, ma'am.
Martha Archambault.
Yeah. Yeah.
So slow and steady. There were errors made in the making of the pickleball courts. Size, they can't be used for tournaments. There's no way to do the swing because of the fence. So things were rushed. So slow and steady for everybody. The other thing I was thinking about was the courthouse and its use, if there's a playground with children and noise and, you know, how it's a courthouse, people go in and out. but-
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That may be, that's something that we'll have to, the court may say later, we don't want it.
Something.
Jamie?
Yeah, we have to go, I have to get to my babysitter and she's getting kids, and there are a lot of people with kids that are. We started off this meeting being told that there was this was mostly a conversation about playgrounds, and I'm a little confused as to how this has then turned into, it's not about playgrounds. I just want to say that out of that list, playgrounds are not in it. And the list of stuff that's going to be changed, at this point now, it's that playground equipment is being taken out. And there's plans for, which I guess this just takes a long time.
Well, if I
And we're
may,
gonna get a swing, and that's wonderful.
I
but
think there's some immediate things we can do at
Yeah.
minimal cost. The Parks and
It would
Rec
be-
Commission has capital money to make
Yeah.
improvements. That's not a whole.
Sure, and I also, the sound of children playing is a lovely sound. And I also, there's been a lot of conversation about the natural colors. And I understand this is Great Barrington and that we don't want plastic and all sorts of things, but children like color, and it's okay to have color. And Giggle Park is really not the palette for the future of maybe we have more people over 70, but if we want to continue to attract people with children, let's make attractive parks for children it's like the thought of like closing a school because there aren't enough children to go to school, then you attract more children. I'm really sorry we have to go, but thank you so much for doing this, and, thank you.
It's a process.
It's not the design phase, it's just like input, but I agree that it has to be properly designed, and like,
Yeah.
with a modern
A
approach.
thoughtful design with people with children involved in the design process would be really ideal.
If you could spread the word to get the.
I'm gonna get
forms.
this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, spread the word that those forms will be available online and get the word out.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Really, thank you so
Just wanted to
much.
clarify something.
Mark, go ahead.
Calling, living on Warren Avenue since 1984. I just wanted to clarify something about the bridge. You mentioned that it would cost $100,000 to. Is it possible that rather than a new bridge, just a repair that would be safe bridge for crossing?
Part of the time, I've talked to Chris Rembold at length about this, because when the Bentley Avenue thing came in, it was like, oh, let's do that. It'd be a great way to get. And then all of a sudden, now you're talking about Concom and you're crossing a water and that there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to be considered. That may be more than it is, but I know it's a lot more than we think it is. That it's something that could be looked at. And I would ask Gordon to do that and say, how could we make that a safe passage?
We could have we have folks that can do an assessment of that
Okay,
bridge.
so I think I think that's a great question is, what can we do to make it foot traffic safe?
Because I advocated with all those residents. I don't think anyone came here. who's-
No, not yet.
I've seen people come over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yes, ma'am.
I'll be brief. Alessandra. Andrew. So one thing about saving some money, I would strongly encourage for putting in sand boxes. They become kitty litter boxes.
Right.
Very quickly. So most schools aren't even allowed to have that anymore because of that. And then just going back, I'm sorry that they've left, but the truth of the matter is that I've seen and having worked with children for 45 years now, is that no child has ever been discouraged by the color of the tree being green and brown. I mean, the truth of the matter is they love the discovery. They feel that they're actually doing something, exciting, where the other, like this difference between Legos and just plain blocks or seashells or rocks. They will gravitate first to the Legos and then they end up going, especially in the early childhood phase, end up going over to the natural substances because it's more challenging. But Lego tells you exactly what to do. A color thing tells you exactly, limits your imagination. So I'm just saying.
Okay.
Let's avoid kitty litter. Trust me.
Yeah, sandboxes are,
Sandbox.
they're bye-bye.
What's their growth rate now?
I don't know what the hell.
There was
I
a
think it was.
structure that
All
I
right.
didn't- I didn't know
Anything
what
else?
to do.
I'm going to close this at this point. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll let you know what's going on. If we ever figure it out, we'll let you know.